So it's a busy day. Joining us now is Democratic Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi. He is a member of the House Intel and Oversight Committees. So, Congressman, you're the perfect person to speak to this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay,
Good morning.
about an hour and a half from now, your committee will be meeting with, as we said, the Ambassador Gordon Sondland. He, I think we should note, is not a disinterested party here. As we just said, he gave $1 million to President Trump's inauguration. So how does your committee begin tackling someone like this?
Well, thanks for having me on. I think Mr. Sondland is kind of at the heart of what appears to be a pressure campaign by the president to get the Ukrainian leader to basically manufacture dirt on a political rival. And as you mentioned in these text messages, you know, Mr. Sondland appears to be essentially saying, you know, call me whenever somebody asks him, are we conditioning military aid on investigations? He doesn't want to talk about it over text message. He'd rather kind of verbally tell whoever is texting him that, you know, let's talk about this offline, which raises the question, you know, why? Why does he want to do that? And, you know, what exactly is the pressure campaign that's being waged against the Ukrainian leader?
When he does spell something out in a text message, as we saw on September 19th, what he does is parrots the president's talking points, you know, basically word for word. And we know from reporting in the New York Times that he spoke to the president before he released the text message, or before he, I guess, sent the text message to that other envoy, where he basically says, no, there was no quid pro quo. So what if he just takes that route in today's interview and just continues to parrot the president's party line?
Of course, a quid pro quo is not necessary for you know, committing a crime in this instance of soliciting or asking assistance from a foreign power to interfere in our elections or to give campaign assistance. But regardless, I think on the next day, the ambassador, I'm sorry, Mr. Taylor, the charge d'affaires for Ukraine in Kiev, again asked a similar question to what he said before, which is, I think that we should not be conditioning aid on an investigation. This sounds crazy to me. And he does say what you mentioned in terms of parroting talking points, and then he said, let's take this offline again. So I think that, you know, that's again another question mark about what exactly is going on.
Well, yesterday, as I understand it, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, George Kent, was supposed to appear, but didn't appear. And so I'm wondering, are you having trouble getting people to agree to meet their appearances?
Well, it's always a challenge with regard to getting Trump administration officials to show up for depositions and hearings. But in this particular case, we've already talked to other officials, including Mr. Volker last week, and of course the Inspector General for the intelligence community twice. He is a Trump-appointed official. That being said, let's hope that you know, Mr. Sondland appears, as well as Ms. Ivanovich later on this week. Public pressure is mounting, as you've mentioned before, and answers, you know, need to be had at this point.
Two whistleblowers have now come forward, not to the public, of course, but at least to their lawyers. There is an effort to try to keep their identity secret, despite the fact that the president is demanding to know who the whistleblowers are. Are you worried that if your committee meets with one of the whistleblowers, that someone on your committee, perhaps Congressman Devin Nunes, would tell the White House about this? And the reason I single out Devin Nunes is because we remember in March of 2017, he did report intelligence information to the White House that he wasn't supposed to be, you know, communicating to them. So are you worried about him doing that again?
We're in an extremely unusual situation, Allison, as you mentioned before, which is that the president essentially wants to know the identity of the whistleblower, and quite frankly, based on his statements, appears to want to retaliate against the whistleblower and wants to discourage that person, him or her, from telling their story to the American people. In light of that, at this point, we have to take extreme precautions to make sure that we protect his or her identity and allow them to tell their story. I'm hoping that we can entrust every member of the committee with, this extremely secret information if it ever were disclosed to anyone. That being said, in this particular instance, I think that we should take every precaution necessary to make sure nobody on the committee knows the identity, and that includes myself. I don't want to know the identity of this whistleblower.
But just help me understand that. So how will you interview that person if you don't know their identity?
Well, I think that there are different ways of doing it. I don't want to get into the specifics of these negotiations that are going on between the whistleblower's lawyer and our committee. However, there are ways to mask their audio and their image, maybe to do it off-site. But the point is that we just don't want, in my humble opinion, in this particular instance, we have to protect the whistleblower's identity, not just to protect this courageous person, but also to avoid the chilling effect that the president is deliberately creating with regard to other whistleblowers coming forward to tell their story as well.
But again, do you trust every member of your committee?
I would like to trust every member of the committee. I don't want to comment any specific person. I'd like to trust every person, but at this point, let's just make sure that there's no inadvertent disclosure that happens or intentional because some information got out that we didn't want to get out.
Very quickly, Republicans are very angry that your chairman, Adam Schiff, had some sort of coordination or communication with the original whistleblower. What do you say to the people who are outraged about that?
This is ridiculous. This is nonsense. Basically what happened is what happens typically with a lot of whistleblowers, which is that they come to our committee, they ask what's the procedure. Our committee basically says, okay, go to the Inspector General if you would like to file a complaint, and then go through the process. That happens 1 or 2 times a month at this point. And that's basically what happened in this instance, that they came to an aide for the committee and said that they wanted to disclose a matter and make a whistleblower claim. And the committee then directed them to the appropriate Inspector General in this case. So I think this is just deflecting attention from the underlying allegations. You notice they're not really talking about the underlying allegations. They keep talking about Adam Schiff.
Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi, thank you very much for explaining to us what is going to happen this week. John.
Thank you so much.